Welcome to episode 4 of the Renault Master camper conversion. In this episode we're going to be covering solar panels and the ventilation fan, and the reason I'm combining these two is positioning. So we have these ribs which support the structure of the van, the roof, stop it from flapping up and down, make it a bit more rigid. So we can't cut into these, we don't want to cut into these, it's just going to make the roof weaker, it's just not a good idea. So we can't go in this last one, because it's above this thing. I considered it, tried working it out, I didn't like the idea, so we scrapped that. One solar panel at the back, and the fan will go here. So I've marked it out where I want it, in the centre. I put it as far forward towards this rib here as I can, and then I put 2 screws in here. So this now I can see coming from the top, and I can place my fan over these screws and see if I like how it sits on the roof. I know I can't go forward, that's why I put the screws this side. But I can go back, so if I go back, these screws aren't going to be left in the ceiling, so they'll be within the cutouts. That's why I've done it like that. So that's where I'm at with that. So now I'm going to get on top and try and fit the fan and see what happens. The first thing I'd done before I'd done anything was clean this whole roof, because once the solar panels are on there, we're not really going to be able to do anything with it. So it's all clean, and I've hooked that inner part of the roof vent onto the screws. You can see them sticking up there. It sits nicely, it's not overhanging that. That'll be a bit of a bugger to try and seal that up, and then we've got enough back at the back for the solar panel. So I'm happy with where that sits, and now I'm going to go and cut it out and fit it properly. So this is the piece that I cut out. I'm going to reuse this piece, so I'm going to cut the top rib off, because that will make it too tall for what I need it for. And it leaves me with a section like that. What I'm going to do is cut it in half. I'm going to strip these down here, and I'm going to glue them to the roof to create a cage to sit the fan on. The reason I'm doing that is a double layer of, this is actually fiberglass, it's not metal, ceiling's fiberglass, the roof's fiberglass. It's going to double up the thickness of it, and it's also going to stop me from using so much of the Silkaflex, which is expensive, to stick this down and seal it off. So it's going to help with that and help make it a bit more rigid as well. So it's there, so I might as well use it. Now I'm ready to stick the fan on. Taped it up around the side so I can get a nice clean finish, and then them little bits that I made there, I've just made like a little cage for the silicone. So that should get a nice seal around that and strengthen them ribs too. That's the fan mounted. It's not completed. I've just put a couple of wood screws to hold it down. I just needed to get it in position and stuck down, and then I can move on to the rear solar panel. But before I do that, I'm going to fix these holes with some fiberglass. So the way you do your solar panels is going to depend on your layout on your roof. I had to get this right at the back, meaning I couldn't get any fixings along the back edge. So what I've done is used the corner kit and just put the 2 front corners on, and then the long rails, the 2 separate kits. So I'm combining them to do it like this. I didn't want to screw loads of holes in my roof, so I decided to use these brackets. And I'm going to make some sort of bracket just to get a little bit of support in the middle. Now the solar panel's the right way up and it's mounted on the roof. It's glued down, no screws. I'm pretty happy with how it's come out. The same as the vent, we taped up around the edges when we glued it down, and then obviously cleaned it up a bit, removed the tape to get a nice clean finish. That one we done yesterday, so now I'm going to take it off and pull the cables back through to where I need them. And these two have just been mounted. So with the centre bracket, you don't want to fill that little groove there. That's a drainage groove, so you don't want water pooling inside, because it could start leaking into the roof. And then I've put 2 fixings at the front, because when you're driving, the lift's going to be on the front. So just for extra security, but the rest of that can be glued down. I'm happy with that, how that's come out. It looks pretty neat. I like these, how they sit on the roof. So I'm going to leave that for today anyway. Let that glue go off, because I don't want to disturb it or make it come unstuck or move a little bit. And I'm going to move back onto this one, pull the cables back out, and figure out how I'm going to get them all through the roof and connect them all together neatly. Now the glue has gone off, that solar panel has been removed, the cables have been sorted out and clipped down. I stuck these clips on last night, but what I found was when I tried to pull the cable tight, that one come loose. I've stuck this one on today and I've put a screw in it. And this one is glued down, so I'm going to be extra careful, and I've got a smaller cable tie so it doesn't put too much stress on the joint as I pull it. So with these connections, what I'm doing is I'm drilling a hole, drilling one first, then I'll get that bolt through and slide it on to align the other hole so I don't get any misalignments. And then bolting it like that, sealing it on. So all I have to do is just slide that on like that. And then I've got a nice tight fit. I'll put a washer and a nut on top of there. So that can all be easily removed. Now, anything, if I get a damaged panel or it doesn't work, they can just be easily swapped out without causing too much damage or stress to get the job done. Done as much as I can now with the cables, so I haven't fully tightened these down yet because I've got one last cable to connect in, so I might need to move it. I also haven't fully tightened that cable tie, but I got that one through a bit easier because it's smaller, so hopefully it won't pull that fixing off. Once that solar panel's on and fixed down, I will then cable tie that to that over there and glue that down. The cable tie should hold it down, if not, a bit of tape, and I've put that tape on there just so I don't make a mess with the sealant. I was going to coil this up, but there's some fixing holes in the side there, so I cable tied it there and it loops just around, so it's pretty neat. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to lower it down and fix it in place. That is the solar panel installed done. So I'm using the isopropyl alcohol to clean off any silicone that sort of gets on the roof. Also put a bit of tape on there just so you can wipe your fingers on it. Comes in handy. So now the cables are routed inside the roof. I'm going to have to do some work inside before I can mount the isolator. Before I glue the inlet on the roof, I want to route my cable. So I've drilled it across into that cavity, and that will be hidden within the ceiling. Run it along there, into the pillar, down there, and then into the panel that I want to fix all the solar accessories, leisure batteries, and all the devices needed. But before I can do that, I need to do some work here so I can fix this board to the wall, and then I can mount everything I need on the board. That's my solar setup complete. As tidy as I could get it with the cables, but I'm happy with that. So now I can start connecting up inside. The next step on the solar install is to fit your breaker. Now I'm using a 32 amp breaker, and this one comes with the cables and MC4 connectors. The kit also comes with more MC4 connectors, so I can connect them onto the solar cables. You're going to need some crimpers to do that as well. So when fitting the MC4 connectors, the metal bits inserts are different, so make sure you put the right one on the right cable. And then it's double insulated, this cable, so you want to strip the insulation back like that, so then you can crimp the fitting onto the insulation and then crimp it onto the cable as well. And then that will slide straight into the MC4 connector and you can tighten it up. The breaker's fitted and wired to the solar panels. I've also fitted the charge controller. I've gone with a Victron energy kit, so it comes with the mppt 100x30 charge controller, 3 125 watt solar panels, the MC4 connectors, the cables down to the breaker, and then it's got the cables from the charge controller to the buzz bars. So everything you need really to do this job, apart from the breaker. So I'm going to get these wired up first. So we're supposed to wire to the buzz bars first, and then from the charge controller to the breaker. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll show you after. I'm using the cable that come with the kit. I'm also putting ferrules on, so you're going to need some tools to tighten down the ferrules. This gives you a better connection, and you ain't got to worry about loose strands. Another thing is with the automotive cable, you must use multi-stranded cable, and this is the solar cable, so it's double insulated because it's going to be on the roof. So you're going to have to cut the insulation back like that to get the correct size ferrule on the cable. My Victron energy system is now complete. So the two cables, positive and negative, they connect in MC4 connectors behind this for easy removal of this board. Now I can remove this board with only removing a few cables, will it be the battery terminals and the ground. And then I can remove all of this at the moment because I need to insulate behind this. Next, we run into the 32 amp breaker. This protects the cables to the solar panels and the panels, and then the cables go into our smart controller. These just go behind to keep it tidy so we don't have crossing wires. We have our ground cable, which goes to our negative bar, and then our ground goes into the chassis behind there. I've also used a cement board because it says to mount it on a non-flammable surface. Now, cement board is a good heat conductor, so it will absorb the heat, and obviously it shouldn't pass too much heat through to the wood to risk catching fire. So that's safety. We have our negative cable going to the bus bar as well, and then the live cable positive is here, and then the fuse is there to protect this cabling and this unit. Now the Victron energy system is complete, we're ready to turn it on. But before we can turn it on, we need to set the right setting underneath for the battery. I've got lithium batteries, so it's setting 7 for me. There's a turn switch underneath, which is labelled 1 to 8, and you just turn it around with a flathead screwdriver until it points on number 7 if you're lithium. You want to check which sort of battery system in the user manual first before you turn it on. You're also going to need to set up your cable system and your storage system before you can power this up, which I've already done, and that's my next video. The first thing to do would be to turn on the battery isolator and power up the smart controller. Once you turn it on, you're going to leave it about 10 to 15 seconds for it to just boot itself up. After you've waited, then we're going to turn on the solar, and then you can connect to the app and then see what's going on, just to make sure everything's right and it's charging. We also have a battery monitor, but that's part of the cable and storage system. So in that video, I'll cover that. And that is it. That's the Victron energy system now live and charging our battery. So our next step would be to wire in our fuse board, and then we can get our appliances and lights and everything running.